Have you ever stopped to think about your money? I mean, really think about it. A dollar is a dollar, right? It seems simple enough on the surface. Yet, we treat dollars from different sources in completely different ways. Consider your rent or mortgage payment. This is serious money. It sits in your bank account with a clear, almost sacred purpose. You would never dream of taking a few $100s from that pile to buy the latest smartphone or a pair of designer sneakers. That money is already spoken for. It belongs to the essential expenses category in your mind, a category that is locked down and non-negotiable. Now, let's imagine a different scenario. Your boss calls you into their office and tells you that you've earned a surprise performance bonus of $1,000. Suddenly, the world looks a little brighter. How does that $1,000 feel compared to the $1,000 earmarked for your housing? It feels lighter, doesn't it? It feels like extra money, a windfall that has fallen from the sky. Let me tell you a quick story about a friend of mine. We'll call him Jim. Jim is a diligent saver and a very sensible person when it comes to his regular paycheck. He budgets carefully, contributes to his retirement fund, and rarely makes impulsive purchases. He packs his lunch for work and drives a reliable, paid-off car. By all accounts, he is the model of financial prudence. He understands the value of a dollar and the importance of planning for the future. His monthly budget is a work of art, with every dollar from his salary assigned a specific job, whether it's paying for utilities, buying groceries, or being funneled into his investment portfolio. One day, Jim received an unexpected work bonus. It wasn't a life-changing amount of money, but it was a nice, tidy sum of $2,000. The moment that money hit his bank account, the rational, budgeting Jim seemed to take a vacation. He didn't see $2,000 that could be used to pay down his mortgage faster or boost his emergency fund. Instead, he saw an opportunity for a grand gesture. He decided to treat his entire family to an extravagant dinner at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, a place he would never dream of going on a normal Tuesday night. The bill, with its fancy wine and multi-course tasting menu, consumed a significant portion of the bonus. After the magnificent dinner, what was left of the bonus money was quickly spent on a few other luxuries he'd been eyeing: a new high-tech espresso machine and a designer watch. Within a week, the entire $2,000 was gone. When I asked him about it later, he just shrugged and said, "It was bonus money. It was meant to be enjoyed." This phenomenon, this peculiar habit of treating money differently depending on where it comes from, has a name. Economists and psychologists call it mental accounting. It's the cognitive process we use to organize, evaluate, and keep track of our financial activities. Essentially, we create a series of mental accounts in our heads, and we assign different sources of income and different types of expenses to these accounts. A dollar is not just a dollar. Its identity is shaped by its origin story. The money earned from a grueling 40-hour work week goes into the hard-earned salary account, which is guarded by strict rules and responsibilities. It's the bedrock of our financial stability. On the other hand, money that arrives unexpectedly, like a bonus, a tax refund, an inheritance, or even a small lottery win, gets funneled into a completely different mental account. We might call this the windfall or fun money account. The rules for this account are much looser, if they exist at all. Because this money wasn't part of our regular budget or expectations, we perceive it as a surplus. To truly understand why we fall into the trap of mental accounting, we need to look at the psychological machinery working behind the scenes. One of the most powerful concepts that explains this behavior is called prospect theory, developed by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. At its core, prospect theory describes how people make decisions under uncertainty, and a key finding is that we feel the pain of a loss much more intensely than we feel the pleasure of an equivalent gain. For most people, losing $100 feels significantly worse than the happiness they get from finding $100. This is known as loss aversion. This asymmetry in how we perceive gains and losses has a profound impact on our financial decisions. When we think about our regular salary, we frame it as part of our baseline wealth. Spending money from this salary, especially on something frivolous, feels like a loss. We are moving away from our reference point of financial stability, and that feels painful. This is why we are so careful with our responsible money. We are trying to avoid the sting of loss. Each dollar spent from our paycheck is a small cut, and our loss-averse brains are wired to prevent as much of that pain as possible, motivating us to be frugal and cautious. However, when we receive a bonus or a tax refund, we don't perceive it as part of our baseline wealth. We see it as a pure gain. It's money we weren't counting on, so it exists entirely in the gain column of our mental ledger. Since it's not part of our established financial foundation, spending it doesn't feel like a loss. We are not dipping into our core assets. We are simply spending from a surplus. The pain of loss aversion is completely absent. The world is full of mental accounting traps, cleverly disguised as opportunities for a little financial relief or fun. One of the most common is the annual tax refund. Millions of people look forward to this moment all year, but instead of viewing it as what it actually is, an interest-free loan they gave to the government because they overpaid their taxes, they see it as a yearly bonus. Another classic trap is casino winnings or small lottery prizes. Let's say you go to Las Vegas with $500 to gamble. You get lucky at the blackjack table and walk away with $2,000. You've quadrupled your money. A rational person would recognize that they now have $2,000. But mental accounting kicks in. We tell ourselves that the original $500 is our money and the extra $1,500 is the house's money. This makes it incredibly easy to be reckless with that $1,500. This mindset also applies to smaller, everyday windfalls. Finding a $50 bill in the pocket of an old winter coat feels amazing. What do most people do? They immediately think of what they can buy with it. It becomes free money designated for a nice dinner out or an impulse purchase. The thought of depositing it into a savings account rarely crosses our minds, because that would feel like taking this fun, exciting discovery and turning it into something boring and responsible. So, how do we fight back against these deeply ingrained psychological biases? How do we break free from the mental jails we build for our money? The first and most crucial step is to consciously and deliberately treat all income as the same. You must force your brain to recognize that a dollar is a dollar, regardless of whether it came from your salary, your bonus, your tax refund, or a lucky find on the street. A powerful, practical way to enforce this new mindset is to have all your income, every single source, deposited into one central bank account. This means your paycheck, your bonus, any freelance income, and any cash gifts you receive should all go into the same pot. This act of physically pooling your money helps to break down the artificial mental barriers. When the bonus money is mixed in with the salary money, it loses its special status. It's no longer a segregated pile of fun money. This strategy requires a shift in perspective. You have to move from thinking, "What can I buy with this bonus?" to "How does this influx of cash impact my overall financial plan?" The arrival of extra money should prompt questions like, should this go toward my high-interest credit card? Should I use it to finally max out my retirement contribution for the year? Or should I put it in my emergency fund? Once you've pooled all your money into one account, you need a system to manage it. Otherwise, you just have a big pile of cash with no direction, which can be just as dangerous. The key is to create a budget or spending plan before the money is spent. One of the most effective and simple systems is the 50-30-20 rule. This framework provides clear, predefined categories for your entire income, removing the guesswork and emotional decision-making. It works by allocating 50% of your after-tax income to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings and debt repayment. Let's break that down. The 50% for needs covers your absolute essentials: housing, utilities, groceries, transportation, and insurance. These are the non-negotiable costs of living. The 30% for wants is where your fun money lives. This is for dining out, hobbies, entertainment, and shopping for non-essential items. This category explicitly gives you permission to spend on things that bring you joy, but it puts a firm boundary on it. The final 20% is for your future self. This goes toward paying down debt, saving for emergencies, and investing for retirement. This structure ensures you are always building wealth. To make this even more powerful, you should automate the process. Set up automatic transfers from your central checking account. The day after your paycheck lands, have an automatic transfer move 20% of it into a separate high-yield savings or investment account. Pay yourself first, before you even have a chance to think about spending it. This is the ultimate defense against mental accounting. We've seen how our internal mental accounting can trick us into thinking some money is more spendable than others, often to the detriment of our long-term goals. By understanding these psychological traps and implementing a simple, unified system like the 50-30-20 rule, you can start treating every dollar with the respect it deserves and directing your resources with intention. You can break free from the cycle of splurging with windfalls and begin building real sustainable wealth. But what happens when your income grows significantly? You get that big promotion, you land a much higher paying job, and suddenly your paycheck is substantially larger. Logically, this should make you feel richer and more financially secure. However, for many people, this doesn't happen. They find themselves in a situation where they are earning more than ever before, yet they feel just as broke as they did before the raise. They are still living paycheck to paycheck, just with more expensive stuff. This puzzling phenomenon is another common financial trap, closely related to the behavioral quirks we've discussed today. It's the reason why a bigger salary doesn't always translate into a bigger net worth. There's a powerful force at play that causes our expenses to rise in lockstep with our income, ensuring we never truly get ahead. So, in our next discussion, we are going to dive deep into this very topic. We will explore the psychology behind what is often called lifestyle inflation or the hedonic treadmill. We'll look at why we feel compelled to upgrade our lives every time we get a raise, and how social pressure and our own expectations conspire to keep us from feeling rich, no matter how much we make. And of course, we will talk about the practical strategies you can use to combat this tendency, so that your next raise actually makes you richer, not just leaves you with bigger bills to pay. Watch out for that.